Hi there, Kenya Updates Live. People, how are you doing? All of you viewers, you're very welcome to the show again. We're hosting it on a Sunday night. Anyway, we are still kind of on time because we are just in the weekend. Hope you're going to watch us. For some of you guys who don't know that we are now live on this particular platform, I actually put a link in my YouTube channel, which is Moore's Lifestyles, and hoping that you guys will actually participate and come on board. Yeah, so today's topic is about the MPs in Kenya who are busy chest thumping and claiming claiming that nobody is above the law. Yeah, anybody can be impeached. They suddenly discovered, that they have the power to impeach a whole president. Some of them actually said that they were bribed certain amount of money to impeach Gachagua. So all of a sudden they just discovered, Gachagua is actually the deputy president. Yeah, so maybe we can actually impeach him. Well, yeah, now they're threatening to impeach people. Why? Just because they've lost the NGCDF, which is the Constituency Development Fund that has been renamed National Government Constituency Fund, so that they can circumvent the law around it, because that NGCDF fund is really only supposed to be used for the counties, at the county level by the governors. But the MPs are holding on to that money so tightly because it gives them power. It gives them power to say, okay, come here, madam, I'll give you 2,000 shillings to help you with your scholarship for your child. And it's just a way for them to hoodwink the public, to ensure that they have voters at the end of the day. But really, it's not their responsibility. Their responsibility is to pass laws and to check policies and to oversight the government. It's their job as the members of parliament who are responsible for representing the population, isn't it? They're voters. But they're not interested in that. They're interested in the money. Today, I'm still waiting for Susan to join us. So, Susan had actually sent me this very interesting video about Kenyans not being able to afford their basic needs. So today we're going to be talking about the MPs themselves. So I had a little bit of a write-up. Let me read it up for you. Okay. Apparently, there were allegations of bribes. The president actually said some of these committee members were receiving huge amounts of money. He accused the MPs of taking bribes. He alleged that certain MPs received up to 10 million shillings to pass the Anti-Money Laundering and Counter-Protection Financing Bill. Now, talk about an oxymoron. You're receiving 10 million shillings as bribe to pass the Anti-Money Laundering Bill. I mean, how money laundering is that? And then he also said that meanwhile, the Justice and Legal Affairs Committee, JLAC, which handled the bill, strongly denied these accusations, stating that no such inducements were received. So I guess the Justice and Legal Affairs Committee, refuted these allegations by the president himself. Around the same time, the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission confirmed ongoing investigations into MPs accused of demanding or receiving bribes and extorting cabinet secretaries or governors and inflating allowances, misusing development funds, or charging protection fees. Okay, that's according to the Citizen Digital. So, of course, the MPs are pushing back, and we can see, for example, MP Gitonga Mukunji, he called the executive hypocritical. He actually called Ruto hypocritical, claiming that the executive uses bribes to pass unpopular bills, such as the finance bill, systemic coercion rather than isolated incidents. Okay? So apparently he's blaming the executive of coercing the MPs to actually pass unpopular bills, such as a finance bill. And the MPs also complained that Ruto's remarks harmed their reputation. So, for example, MP Njoroge Wainaina, he said that even their spouses are now suspect. They have become corrupt. The senators are also demanding, everybody is fighting. The senators are also demanding that President Ruto be formally summoned to provide evidence of his claims. And they adopted a presumption of innocence and insisted that accusations of such gravity must be substantiated through proper process. So the Member of Parliament, Junet Mohammed, argued that what was described by Ruto as bribery might actually be lobbying, which, while often criticized, is not inherently corrupt and is common globally.
Coming back to Parliament, Your Excellency, there are certain pronouncements you have made about the Parliament. Me, I assumed you were talking about lobbying. Your Excellency, lobbying is different from the one you said. Lobbying, it happens all over the world. I thought you were saying people should reduce lobbying. But you know, the people who are lobbying are from outside Parliament. They are not inside. They come here, they hover around the corridors of Parliament. It's an internationally accepted standard of parliamentary work, Your Excellency. Lobbying. This other one you have talked about is alien to us. I have never seen that one in my I have never seen. Then there are other contentious issues that has been pronounced also by my party leader, that I don't know what to do about them, because you know, Your Excellency, no DM, what my party leader says is law. So I'm really struggling. You know, it's like the Vatican. When the Pope has announced something in the Vatican, you just have to summon the members and tell them, this is what the Pope has said, and this is the sermon for today. I'm really struggling. Maybe under the broad base we shall find a way to discuss those issues. With those few remarks, thank you, Mr. Your Excellency. We'll come back to you.
This lobbying is where, you know, when they're not in Parliament, out in the corridors there are people out there who are lobbying for certain bills to be passed, certain policies to be passed, so they give a little bit of an incentive, I guess. And according to Junet Mohammed, he thinks that is kind of okay, yeah? Oh, Susan is here. Karibu, Susan.
Hi, can you hear me? I had a lot of challenges joining.
Karibu, Susan. Yes, I can hear you. Yeah, today has been one of those days, I've noticed. Yes, I really apologize for that. Yeah, welcome to the show. Bottom line, they say that there's no credible evidence reporting that Parliament as an institution was bribed to ignore bad policy news. And what's being alleged is that some MPs and parliamentary committees were bribed, okay? Yeah, we know about all that. Yeah. Senator Manzo alleges cash offer to sway impeachment vote of 4 million shillings. Okay, so these are the allegations. 4 million shilling bribe offer. Executive bribery claim. Some MPs argued that executive pressures to pass unpopular bills. Ongoing Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission probe, you know? So there's all this back and forth. It's one of the most difficult things is actually to deal with this issue of corruption and the issue of bribery. And you know, unfortunately, our president, our executive was voted the second most corrupt president in the world, I believe, you know. And that is not a very good thing. And that's one of the things that we hear that Gashaga was saying, that according to him, it's unfortunate that the executive himself was voted the second most corrupt because he believes he's actually the most corrupt, right? So listen, when the president is accusing parliamentary committees of functioning like extortion rings, you know, where money is demanded from the executive and governors and ministers in exchange for favorable oversight and reports, yeah, what does that mean? What does that mean? Because you see, all of these people are his. This is his government. So is he calling his own government corrupt? So there's been a lot of pushback against these allegations, and this is what we're going to be discussing. A lot of the MPs are playing the victim. They're demanding proof. They're turning their accusations around. Everybody's busy pointing fingers at each other. But as they say, there's this popular saying in Kenya where they say, Kenyans are so interesting. I think it's something like, when the hyena wants to eat their young, they start accusing their young of smelling like goats. I find that absolutely hilarious, yeah. Yeah, so that's the issue. So Susan, I had just covered the fact that, you know, 6 out of 10 Kenyans can't even cover their cost of living. Meanwhile, these people are being accused of being corrupt, being bribed with 10 million shillings, etc. You know, it's just too much.
Yeah. So I was just, building on what, talking about the constitution of the multi-agency team on the war against corruption that was established by the president, pointing out the constitution of this particular team. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So there's the executive office of the president, the chair as the chair. Then we have the attorney general as the secretary, and then National Intelligence Services, Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions, Director of Criminal Investigations, Assets Recovery Agency, Financial Reporting Center, CBK, KRA, Public Procurement Regulatory Agency. So this is what he established. But he claims he was building on recommendations that were made by a task force in 2015 on anti-corruption reforms, and also legislative reforms like the Conflict of Interest Act that was passed recently in 2025, and amendments to the Proceeds of Crime and Money Laundering Act. But this notwithstanding, the matter was taken to court because they argued, the petitioners took the matter to court on a constitutional matter and said it's unconstitutional to establish this particular agency because there are other agencies which are, constitutional agencies which are charged with the same job. One is the Office of the Director of the Public Prosecutions, and secondly, the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission. So he was establishing this particular organization they claim there was duplication. First of all, trying to usurp the roles of these other organizations which are constitutionally recognized and duplicate their work. There was pushback from the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, who said no, they don't agree. They think the role of this particular, the MATWAC, is to coordinate. But you see, the truth of the matter is the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission and the ODPP, they have their roles, and they didn't talk about all of them because even some of the other constitutional organs which are recognized have that coordinating responsibility. So you really don't need another one, And of course, this is if you look clearly and closely and cleanly, it's like a way of controlling the narrative. He has established this to control the narrative, and we literally defeat the issues. Because if you look at some of the allegations on corruption, some of them are nepotism and cronyism, conflict of interest, money laundering, possession of unexplained assets and stuff like that. That these people who have been investigated and they found that they have sufficient evidence to forward the file to the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions, are alleging against these individuals. So this is a battle, but we know for sure this is a smoke screen. This is really about gaining popularity, to paying lip service to the war against corruption, because we know it's a bit late in the day to show an interest in it. We know this has been, even when with the previous presidency, Uhuru said that we were losing about 2 billion shillings every day. I think you can remember that, him making that remark, through corruption. And nothing has been done about it until now, when somebody is trying to prepare, for the second term of their presidency. So those concerns are there. It's a tough conversation. And like I was telling you, that Waroinge has his views about this being a point, a strategy. This is just a leg in what the president is intending to achieve. And he's slowly pushing people out of the way, and we're seeing the picture more clearly. The Speaker of National Assembly, according to Dura Waroinge, his position is at risk, and we can see those shakings when you attack Parliament and say they're the most corrupt. Not to mention, anyway, I think as Kenyans we are a bit concerned about the way he conducts himself, because he seems to be very. The Speaker of the National Assembly is supposed to be an impartial person, but yet we've seen him going round with the ruling party. We've seen him going round with them. He's not supposed to be doing that. He's supposed to be impartial, because he sits there in Parliament to mediate and to adjudicate and to ensure smooth running of the affairs of Parliament. And in Parliament, we have all these parties. So he's not supposed to be pro any party, but he seems to be, not impartial in his conduct. So, I mean, there are things again that people have against him, but it looks like, according to Waronge, his head is one of the ones that's likely to roll soon. Majority leader in National Assembly, Kimani Ichung'wah, and we've seen all types of clips online about him feeling that he's lost his his favor. He's with the the presidency, and he's being sort of outside and marginalized, and also snidely accused of being corrupt. So he's been speaking out. We've seen some clips online. So I don't know. It looks like there might be something in Waronge's words. That we're just watching some movements like a play unraveling before our eyes. So there are a number of people. And then the next thing he also mentioned was that the cabinet secretaries who are from the Mount Kenya region, and he sort of pinpointed Kabogo and others, are likely to start, to be reshuffled out. Of they'll lose their positions in cabinet. So we are just watching that space. So corruption in this nation has some really, really far-reaching effects. It seems it's something that people have sort of accepted as part of our daily lives, which is not right. Because it's exacerbating poverty. Money is being diverted. Immediately we hear the other debate that is there currently in Parliament, in the push and pull between the executive and Parliament, is the issue of the NGCDF funds. And there's a reluctance to allow the parliamentarians, the MPs who are in charge of those funds and their distribution, for them to manage that. And of course, the parliamentarians are pushing back and saying, well, we should be the ones managing this money. Of course, the allegations are that the money is being misused and stuff like that. So there are battles on different levels going on between the executive and Parliament right now. I think the other big discussion was Gachagwa's return, which happened earlier this week on 21st of August. And so he arrived. There was a crowd at the airport. People had I was listening to some of the radio stations and the TV stations on YouTube, and people had sort of like paid their fare to go to receive him at the airport in buses and stuff like that. So there were also, if you recall, there were some claims that there was an intention to arrest him at the airport because of the allegations he had made in the US that the president was in a meeting with 3 Al-Shabaab leaders, and that he was gold for arms trade that he was engaged in as the presidency, and the Americans were very, very keen to hear more about that because they associate the two institutions with terrorism. Terrorism is a war the whole world is fighting against, So they were saying that, he should come and write a statement. So of course the argument is whether or not he should write a statement. So there was that threat hanging over his head that he would be arrested on arrival at the airport. There were allegations that there were plenty of police there ready to arrest him, but again, there are also allegations that they could not get near him because he was completely surrounded. There were so many people. It was not possible for them to arrest him. But what happened is when they, if you're familiar with the Mombasa Road, when they got near the City Cabanas area, they found barricades, stones on the road. Goons started throwing stones. The convoy was very badly damaged by those stones, actually. But they eventually managed to forge through. There's an intention as part of their plans that he would address the crowd at Kamkunji, but he never did. I think that for security reasons, he didn't do that because there was a lot of chaos around the City Cabanas area. So the issue was, I saw some outlets saying, his coming home was underwhelming because he didn't address the people. The other politicians did speak. They did manage to speak through the roofs of their cars. They did address the issues, condemnation for the violence that they met along the way. Actually, it was really serious. Some people I think some journalists were actually injured, journalists from Citizen and TV 47, I think. They were seriously injured, by stone throwing goons. The goons and the police seemed to be standing, next to each other, which was not good for optics and sort of suggests that they were on the same side of that particular situation. And, it's just the same as in the protests where we had these pictures of the goons, mingling freely with the police on the same side, holding those djembe sticks, the big canes, and they were the ones that were using to beat protesters. So it was sort of the same image. In fact, I was listening to one outlet where they said that there are even videos where some people who live in that area were able to catch them setting up the goons arriving and then putting stones all over the road and then positioning themselves to attack the convoy as it passed. People have been through protests. They still go to the streets. We've lost a lot of young men and women as a result of that. Others have disappeared. Abduction is still continuing. People being charged, the bail terms being too high. Talking about people being charged, Boniface Mwangi, his case, the court gave the police, the DCI, 14 days to come up with a clear charge of Boniface Mwangi. So let's see how that goes. When there's concerns about what people think and about the situation, those people who are very vocal about issues are facing, that sort of negative pushback. So the corruption has been a very big issue. And then, of course, Gachagwa's return again has been, actually, I heard some parliamentarians, I think Babu Awino and Edwin Sifuna, they were very, very vocal. They went to church and they were very vocal. Somewhere in Mbakasi, they were very vocal and clear. And in fact, Sifuna said, "Pray for us. We need the fourth man." If you know the story of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the furnace, they were put in the furnace by Nebuchadnezzar because they refused to bow to an idol. And then when they checked, they saw the fourth man, who was Jesus. So they were saying, he was saying, we need the fourth man in this situation. We need, we need Jesus. We need help because he was saying their lives are at risk, but they will not stop speaking up against things that are not going right. And interestingly, even in this space, we've seen a further push. The tensions, the falling of grace or of Raila, we're finding people from the, who'd normally be his very, very strong supporters deciding to choose a different way because they're not satisfied with the choices that he has made, even for ODM as a party. Found Sifuna doing that and Babu Owino. They have a lot of respect for him, that's what they say, but they just don't agree with his politics currently. This broad-based government has caused a lot of tensions in the ODM in particular. They're actually the largest opposition party in parliament. But now when some of their members are now in government, it sort of causes some sort of confusion. You have people against it in the same party and some pro for it. But for sure, the biggest fight we've observed is between parliament and the executive. The back and forth is going on. Education sector, children are going back to school next week. Third term capitation monies have not been disbursed to the schools yet. Parents are trying to buy books. They don't have much disposable income. In fact, I was listening to one lady and she was saying, we used to be able to buy, the full uniform for the children when they need it. Now we can't. We have to buy it in bits. So you buy the shorts this time, you buy the shirt next time, then the shoes, because of the reduction in disposable income. So the children going back, the schools don't have their money yet. The CS himself has said they don't have the money. Again, the reduction of school fees, tuition fees at the university, again is causing some concerns because of there was no consultation they didn't check whether it was sustainable or anything like that, but it's definitely going to have a domino effect. It'd be good for the students and the parents, but it may not be good for sustainability. SHA again is causing problems. It's not really working. The number of people who are subscribed and the people who are paying are reduced. They're just a fraction of that percentage. Private hospitals, in fact, the Rural and Urban Private Hospital Association, they are saying that they think the way they have designed the system is really to frustrate the private hospitals. And, because right now the chair was saying that some of these hospitals are going to have to close down because they don't have money. They have rendered services but not been paid. So that is what's happening, and that's why people have to go to hospital with money. Level 2, 3, 2, 3, 4, which is the major. 2 and 3 actually are the major ones that are used. So that's what's been in the news. Those are the hot topics.
I was just thinking to myself that first of all, I'd like to share my screen to show that video that you sent me about the people who, 6 in 10 Kenyans unable to manage their lives. I think let me try and share my screen and show that video here.
62% of Kenyans expect to be unable to pay at least one of their current loans or bills in full in the coming quarter. This is according to a report by TransUnion that also shows that nearly half of those surveyed say they would take on temporary work to supplement their income. Jimmy Mbogo has details of the report that shows how Kenyans are building resilience in challenging economic times.
Kenya's inflation for the month of July stood at 4.1%, reflecting a slight elevation in the cost of commodities from 3.8% in the previous month. This elevation is now putting pressure on consumers, with a recent report from credit agency TransUnion showing that over 55% of Kenyans expect their discretionary spending to decrease in the next 3 months. The report further indicates that 62% of Kenyans expect to be unable to pay at least one of their current loans or bills in full in the coming quarter, with an additional 34% saying they plan to use their savings, while another 30% are expected to borrow money from friends or family. In the last 3 months, 31% of Kenyans have reported a salary reduction, while 29% experienced job losses. Another 26% reported that their household businesses closed or lost orders. The report painting a picture that Kenyans were concerned about the macroeconomic dynamics, particularly inflation, security, and housing prices, with 76% of Kenyan consumers noting that inflation is a key financial concern, followed by job losses at 60% and housing prices, that is rent and mortgages, at 55%. These factors, they say, have led them to cut back on discretionary spending such as dining out, travel, and entertainment. 61% of those surveyed saying they have cut back on these spendings. Another 30% have cancelled their subscription and discontinued or scaled back their use of digital services. Additionally, 42% of Kenyans expect their spend on in-store or online retail to decrease, with nearly half of those surveyed at 49% expecting to spend less on large purchases in the next quarter. But despite the financial constraints, consumers aren't turning to borrowing due to what they termed as high cost of borrowing. 31% of them opting to find alternate funding, even as 29% expressed concerns about being rejected due to their income or employment status. The findings bringing to light how affordability and perceived ineligibility continue to limit access to credit. On the upside, however, these factors have led to an increase in saving for those with flexibility, where 46% of Kenyans are increasing their emergency saving, a 5 percentage point rise from Q2 of 2024. Jimmy Mbogo, Citizen TV, Nairobi.
Wow. That is such an interesting, report. I love those kinds of surveys because they're talking about the fact that we have almost 30% of the population that is jobless, generally. What they did not do was to do a very good job of describing who it is they talk to. It's important for them to tell us because sometimes they go and they interview students at the university, and that's not good enough. We want to know Who are the population that they actually interviewed? Who are these people? Who did they survey? How did they identify the population? What percentage were women? What percentage were middle class? What were their income? The issue is that we have a third of the population who is out of work. That's serious.
Yeah, that's very true. In fact, what has happened is that also, like for instance, if you say even things like medical care, despite you paying for SHA, you have to go into your pocket to pay for it, and all those type of things. So it's actually making life more difficult in families, because, for instance, if there's a baby on the way or something like that, you can't really depend on SHA, paying for the bed or something like that, because the institutions that you're likely to go to, or where you say you're going to go to have your baby, they're going to demand cash. So it's actually causing a lot of strain on people. In fact, there was another report where they were even talking about the volumes of what people were buying. People are buying smaller volumes because they didn't have with the same amount of money, you can only purchase a smaller volume of the same item. And I think that particular report also talked about brand loyalty. Some people say, oh, I can only buy Omo, or I can only buy Sunlight, or I can only buy a certain type of rice, or I can only buy this. But now people are not sticking with brand loyalty because of the tightening of the pockets. What was interesting was what they said about increased savings, that people are managing to save somehow. I'm not sure which group of people those are who are saving more. It said it was up by 5% or something like that. Yeah, but maybe that's what they said. And I'm not sure.
I think what they mean is that maybe in the banks they can see that people are hoarding money. There's a difference between hoarding and saving, really. Because if you're saving, you're not going out there to borrow from your family.
Yeah, in fact, they talked about emergency funds. We're talking about them being emergency funds, which it's like people are sensing, when you find perhaps people responding that way, they're sensing that economics can just change really drastically. So you must have an emergency fund that's going to be able to protect you or to cushion you in the event that happens. You suddenly lose your job and stuff. For instance, there's a group of people who are in Kenya, for instance, who used to work for organizations where the main funder was the US. And now all of a sudden, they're no longer employed. Because of their age, maybe it's difficult to transition into new jobs. And so their status has changed drastically. So those guys, for sure, you'd find them, trying to keep those emergency funds because of those type of things. And when you talk to a few people who have actually found themselves out of a job from USAID, there's some level of desperation and concern because of that change in status. And some of them may still have young children. It's not easy for a family to change the way it lives, to cut your expenditure by a third, even by 10%, depending on how you're living.
And people are in contracts, as you saw, mortgages. They don't know if they can pay their mortgages. They don't know if they can pay their rent. Their children are in certain schools, like you said. They have car loans. It's bad.
Worry about the mental health indicators in the country when you find quite a fraction of people who have found themselves without jobs. Suddenly, you're the main breadwinner. Your state, you may have to move from where you were living before. You may have to move your children out of the schools that they were in, and that sort of thing. Maybe you have a spouse who doesn't understand. That will call into play their coping ability. Their coping ability, and some people are not very resilient. So I like the the opening of that article, it said how Kenyans are building resilience, to the changes in the economy. And I think, that's really true. People have really changed their habits. Whereas you would go to some places and they were always full, now you find they're only full, say, on Sundays and maybe Friday and Sunday or something like, or Wednesday and something like that, But you'll find a lot of places quite empty. But I don't know how much it's going to change because we have the 3 UN institutions that are moving to Nairobi, the UNFPA, UN Women, and there's a third one that are moving here. So we're expecting a lot of staff from different parts of the world to come to be here. So I don't know how that's going to impact the way, because they're likely to have funds, but the locals themselves, because they're affected directly by the economy, may have a different challenge from them. So I don't know how that will affect our purchasing power as Kenyans. You remember when we had an influx of people going into the Riverside area, Kileleshwa area, and they had a lot of money. So they hiked the prices, the rental prices. Then they became really, really high. So the competition is really high. They were even buying properties perhaps at twice the normal price. So it made it very difficult for the locals themselves to cope because they could not compete with those type of prices. But I know now in the Riverside area, Kileleshwa, that the rental prices went down because people stopped. They couldn't afford it, so they moved to other areas. So now the rental prices came down again. So, and that area is quite convenient. It's a convenient place to live, although it's getting quite crowded now. Yeah, so that report is really telling, and it's a consumer report.
That's a very interesting report, Susan. And when you say the Riverside area, Kilimani, Kileleshwa, is becoming more affordable, you're actually right. But that's also because it's so congested. And now there's a problem with water. Water is a big issue. Many people who live there are actually trying to move out now because of congestion, traffic, water problems, pollution, and just generally everybody is there. Everybody wants to be in the same space. And, these high-rise buildings which are there. But on the other hand, there are other areas that are growing. Syokimau, the coastal area. I've been looking at the rents in the coast and they've gone up. They're skyrocketing. The rents, the apartment rents in the coast. I'm actually a little bit concerned about Mombasa, about Kenyans' ability to afford Mombasa in the next few years. Because you can see that there's a group of people who are coming back. They want to come to Kenya. Everybody is coming to Kenya, and that's going to change the environment. It's going to change the rental space. I also talked to somebody who is in real estate, and she told me that people are no longer buying, they're renting. You can even now rent units that are fully furnished in Kileleshwa because they're targeting African Americans and other people who are coming in with funding from, with Forex. And that's impacting on the cost of living for Kenyans. So I think that we are really in a catch-22 because it means that if things are outpriced for us, it's a good environment for those. Some people will be so desperate, they'll sell, they'll rent cheaply, and people who have the money will benefit. But there will be many others who will just be outpriced out of their environments. Yeah, so it's kind of like we have to watch and see what's going to happen here. But we're going to have to close the show within the next 5 minutes or so. And I think maybe you can give us our last, maybe the last comment I would like to make is to ask Kenyans not to give up hope, that every time that we come on board, we're not just talking bad news, that there's no other country to go to. This is our country. And for those of us who are living outside, some of us in the diaspora who are watching inside, it's a very frightening thing to look and see your country. You don't really know where your country is going. And it's not just Kenya. There are countries like Ivory Coast currently in October. They're having their elections as well. And we are seeing a lot of volatility in the region. We can see that Tanzania doesn't want Kenyans. right? So they're imposing certain taxes. So it's going to become more difficult for us to run away and move to a different neighboring country. So what I would say is that we really need to protect our country and ensure that we remain peaceful regardless. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. This is home. We have to build it. We're born into a country. We're born as nationals of a country, and it's our work to build it and to use the democratically designed platforms, to really get our voice heard, to do everything legally and according to the Constitution. We're not advocating for any breaking of the law. That's not okay. But my parting shot is that the more people try to erase you, the more relevant you are. If they wouldn't be trying to erase you if you are not relevant. So when we look at the response to Gachagwa's return, maybe that's a question we need to ask. When we look at perhaps the battle going on between the executive and parliament, there's a question we need to ask there as well. Dindinyoro says, when you hear big words being used, pay a lot of attention to what is being said. And so Kenyans, we love this nation, and let's keep having the conversations. Is going to help us to understand issues better, and we're happy to hear that we're actually building resilience. We're not just waiting for the sky to fall on our heads. Economically, people are figuring it out, and we thank God for that.
Thank you, Susan. That's a great parting shot. And on that note, I want to thank all those who joined us. I can see there are at least 6 people who have viewed our videos today. So that's a great improvement. Although for some reason you're not able to come into the chat, which is something that I think I need to figure out how to fix. We will edit this show and put it up for you so that you can watch it over the week. Let us know what else you'd like us to discuss, and we'll try our best to always, come on board. If you do not find us online on a Friday night, look out for us during the weekend, either Saturday or Sunday, but we'll definitely be on one of the days of the weekend. So thank you so much for watching. From Susan and I, it's Kwaheri ya kuonana. Goodbye. Thank you for watching and take care. Bye-bye.